Hi, this is our take two.
Yes, take two.
I am Sharon Hoffman. I am here to guide us to our wisdom to navigate any problem or make any dream come alive.
And I'm Chris Newth. I'm an emotional intelligence coach here to share just common sense ways that we can understand our emotions so that we can find more happiness and movement towards those goals and dreams that we want. And this is Happy and Wise. Welcome to the show. Welcome to the
Welcome.
live stream. Hi,
Yeah,
Sharon.
welcome back. Hi, Chris. So great to be back with you. I should say, we say this sometimes, but I'm tuning in from Northern California in Mill Valley.
Yep, and I'm tuning in from Florida, and so we got both coasts
Yep, yep,
represented.
got it
And
covered.
today we're talking about the topic of fear, and specifically how we can navigate it in a way that helps us move in the directions we want to go without letting it stop us.
I love this topic, and I have a question for you, Chris.
Yeah.
Is there something that's been present for you this week that is bringing up this topic for you?
Yeah, I had some clarity and epiphany on one of my bike rides, which we've talked about before, but I'm telling you, it's so not, I mean, everyone, it's different for everybody, right? Find your activity that
Yeah.
works for you, but it's such whenever so often my mind is just operating in a space when I'm enjoying my bike ride outside, fresh air, the wind, the wet, the temperature, the just being in outside, seeing trees, seeing bunnies all over the place. Like there's something about that really unlocks like my mind to start thinking about things that I don't that if I'm all tied up or busy with my day, that I don't get a chance to think about them. And
Who doesn't
so,
love bunnies? Don't they make everybody happy?
oh, I always say like, hi, bum bun, whenever I see one. Like,
With
also,
the little puffy tails,
yes,
little cotton balls.
I also realized that, some like animals like rabbits and squirrels dart in front of your car sometimes. And do you ever wonder like why are they doing that? Like that seems so really stupid. Um, well, I kind of had an
No
epiphany
car
about
sense.
no car sense. And then I realized what it was because I was riding my bike, and at night I have like a headlight on my bike, and at, and to them, I realized this the other day. I was like, oh, they when they see a light coming kind of towards them or in their general direction, they don't know what's going to happen.
Right.
They don't know that I'm following the rules of the road, that I have no intention to like go in the grass towards them. So they have to be ready any second to go any way. So it kind of makes sense because in my mind, I'm like, that's so dumb. Why would you ride in the middle of the road? Why would you cut right in front of me? But to them, they're like, this is like predator prey situation, right? They have to be ready at any time to dart in any direction. And they don't know that I'm sticking to the road. They don't have in my mind, oh, everything's either the road or not the road. To rabbits, they don't think that way. And then it just occurred to me like, oh, that makes much more sense why they might do that, to just try to get away. It's actually pretty smart. Okay. So smart and dumb at the same time. Okay, so I was on a bike ride and I was thinking about how I was asking myself the question about like, okay, one of my challenges has been for a while, and we've talked about this here, my fears about putting myself out there, about being on social media specifically. It's just something that has made me uncomfortable for a while. And so I asked myself, my plan has been to like, oh, how can I start doing some social media content? Like, what are some ways that I can start that process of like, moving in that direction, because I know I want to. I know ultimately I want to share what we talk about here with more of the world. And so how can we make that work? And so I asked myself the question of like, why haven't I been doing it? Why haven't I been creating that content? Why haven't I been doing this? And of course, the reason is because I still have nerves about it. However, the epiphany hit me. Posting makes me nervous. However, posting is not the next step. And that really, really hit me. Like posting on social media is not the next step. It's there's so many steps before that. And I'm letting the fear of posting, which is like three, four, 5 steps down the line stop me from doing the next step, or the next couple steps that I'm perfectly happy to do, which would be like creating the content, outlining what I'd like to talk about, recording some videos on my phone, writing some like shorthand of how I can like write text posts,
Which
creating
is
some
all, by the way, super creative stuff, right?
super creative stuff, which is
When we
like
drop
my
into our creativity, we're not in the fear space, are we? It's like
right.
fear can come when we're thinking what's going to be the fallout of the post, right? But the
Right.
actual act of creating, you just drop in, it grabs you, it feels good, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And so what I realized was I'm letting fear of steps 4, 5, 6 be stop me from even doing steps 1, 2, 3.
Yeah.
And that was such an unlock for me because I was like, "Oh, well, this is silly. Why not do since I truly do feel good about the next step, which are these creative steps because I do enjoy the creativity of that. Why not do that with no
Right.
pressure of having to post?" And something tells me, Sharon, that when I do the creation of these things, I'm going to look at them and like them to the point of like, I want to share these. These are good. These are good videos I made. These are good like posts that I've written. These are good images I've created. Like,
Mhm.
I want to share this with the world. I want to get this
Yeah.
out there. And so sometimes those like those more immediate steps are there to kind of help prepare us for those other steps that we fear, the steps that are like out here. Like these steps are helping us get more comfortable with that. It's not about jumping from here to there. It's like you got to go, but don't let the fear from the steps up here stop you from doing the steps along the way.
Right, right. And it's almost as though it's two separate projects, right? You can parse it out that way to not let the fear lead because there's people have a lot of fear around what's going to happen when they post something on social media. You don't know who's going to respond and what they're going to say. And yet to allow ourselves to drop into just that pure creator energy. It's so
Hmm.
powerful just to express what's inside and get it out of us. So it's almost like I'm getting the picture. If you can look at it as two separate things. The first one is just to let yourself express for the
Hmm.
sake of saying what you have to say in your own words, in the way you want to do it on video, a quote with a picture, whatever it might be, right?
Hmm.
And then the second part would be, yeah, do I feel inspired to post these or some of them, right? That could
Right.
almost be like a two-part that could be off the table in the beginning so that you can step outside of the fear response and into that beautiful expansive energy, right? That is the part of you that is inspired, right? Whenever we let our
Hmm.
inspiration lead, it always gets us to good places, doesn't it?
Hmm. Yeah,
Yeah.
totally. And so this yeah, I kind of like there's a it's pretty popular philosophy out there in hustle culture or athletic footwear of like just do it. Just do the thing. Just
I was gonna that's where you're going with that.
yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah,
Um
right. Just like I don't know, just over
push through
push through,
push
right?
through uh yeah, and there's and I look, that might work for some people. I'm not going to, some people actually get ahead doing that. My question is like, are they happy with that? Are they comfortable with that? And maybe they are. Maybe some
Right.
people are just built for that and that's great. But what I'm learning as I understand life more and more each day is that there are different approaches that work for different people, and there are approaches that seem completely different but can be equally effective. And so find the approach that works for you. And for me, it's about uh, uh, not pushing through fear, but doing what seems fun. However, what I was doing unknowingly was I
Cutting off
was
your fun,
putting
right?
off the
Yeah.
fun because I assumed that the thing was scary because I was looking at it as like, in less of a broken down way. I was not looking at it in terms of steps. I was looking at it in terms of just one single activity or one
Yeah.
single action. And so like realizing, oh, if I just consider like now, here's the thing. It would be very different if the next step I didn't want to do or I was fearful of. That would be different. Then be finding a different approach. Maybe I would be trying some other alternative or something. But because the next steps are fun to me, they're exciting, they're creative, there's no pressure to that. There's just like I love sharing this kind of information. I love writing about this kind of information. I love talking about, obviously. I love endlessly talking about this information. So those things are fun. So so I would say if are you I would ask yourself the question, like, are you letting fear of something that's not even on the horizon right now, not something you have to do right now, just something kind of out there, stop you from making more immediate steps that you do genuinely feel good about? And if you are, that's a great way to sort of reframe that to say, hey, the next steps in this process actually aren't the scary ones. Let's do those because they're fun to me, or they're exciting to me, or they're interesting to me, or they fulfill some kind of passion in me. Focus on what if whatever is next feels good, then continue to do that, and don't let fear of like the overarching thing or fear of steps down the line stop you from making the steps now that you do feel good about. So ultimately it is still about tapping into yourself and making that judgment call of, do I feel good or do I feel bad? But remembering that it's more nuanced and more like step by step. They can be small steps, right?
Right. And I think also it's asking oneself, we can each ask ourselves the question, what is the fear? What do we have the fear of? Because some fears we want to honor, and others we want to move beyond them. For instance, if the fear is, I'll get seen, and
Mm.
there's some part of us that knows we have a voice to share, and
Hmm.
it's new ground, and that's scary. We can honor that fear, and yet we know we want to move through it because it's for our betterment.
Hmm.
And then there could be another kind of fear that is one that doesn't serve us at all. Like, my heart's really not in this. Because
Right.
it's not really
Right.
who I am, and so I don't know that I wanna put that out there. Well, that, or I might get hurt in some way that's really real. Like, here's an
Mm.
example from real life is Simone Biles. So I'm gonna be speaking tomorrow at an event for International Women's Day.
Oh,
And
congratulations. That's
yeah,
fun.
thank you. And I'm invited back second year in a row, and one of the things I did last year that I'm gonna do this year is ask the people in the audience, you know, "Who do you pay tribute to?" And I was thinking, "Who is it for me?" And it's Simone Biles this year
Mm.
because she's something, and it's not because she rose to the top of her sport,
Mm.
a sea of faces that look nothing like hers. And it's not because she's one of the premier athletes in the world. It's neither of those. It's because, in the face of the fiercest competition at the Olympics and a culture that says you push through at all costs, where many gymnasts have been injured, either temporarily or permanently,
Mm.
she knew she was on the brink of that, and she stepped back because she knew it was the right decision for her. She stayed true to who she was. So she didn't let the fear lead her, fear of what will people say, and they said awful things,
Mm.
you know. But if it was a fear of what would happen because she knew she faced serious injury and she was taking care of herself, that was a
Mm.
fear to honor. And
Mm.
so I pay tribute to her for that, for recognizing the difference.
Mm. Can I want I this raises a question for me because I don't know. What i- what would you say to someone who wonders, how do I distinguish the difference between a fear that's legitimate legitimate in the sense that I should listen to that and not move forward, and a fear that I do want to eventually find ways of breaking through?
I think, is it, the question is, the answer I think is it, or to ask ourselves, is it ultimately going to serve me or is it going
Mm.
to harm me? I think that's the heart of the matter. So for her, and if it serves you, it serves everybody. So
Mhm.
even though it may have seemed like it was self-serving to pull out of the Olympics, for instance, because she saved herself from injuring herself, she was able to keep going and contribute to the sport of gymnastics. So if you look at the bigger vision, right, she served herself and everyone in that decision. There was something in her that said this was going to end badly, right? And then sometimes it's like, it was like me starting Clubhouse. I had great fear about it. Same thing you're talking about. But I knew it was going to be in my service to move beyond the fear because I felt really called for a long time to get in front of a public audience. My fear was, well, how are they going to respond? But I knew ultimately it was my dream come true to do it. So ultimately it was going to serve me. So that's what got me over. That was my answer to that question. But I think, I don't know, Chris, what do you think? To me, that's the question.
I think sometimes
Or a question.
when we're evaluating emotions, it can be very subtle and it could be like a
Yeah.
gray area, a gray zone. The way I guess I kind of look at it now, and who knows how that might evolve in the future, but I kind of see it as there are some things that we know we want to do eventually, and we might have fears about those. Those are the ones that we want to start to shift how we're thinking about things, shift how we're seeing it, shift our perspectives. Because ultimately, fear is just a response to the kind of thinking that we have right now. If we're just talking base level, like emotional intelligence, like when we are feeling the feeling of fear, it's telling us that the way we're thinking in this present moment is not in line with what our heart feels is true, or how another part of us would see this situation. And if you eventually want to write that book or put yourself out there or compete in that sport or start that business or find that relationship or whatever it is that is your dream, you want to move in those directions, but you have these like resistance points about them. There's those things that stop you, those things that make you go, maybe I shouldn't do that right now, or maybe I'm not good enough for that right now, or maybe I'm not ready, or maybe whatever the thing is that where you talk yourself out of it. Those are the things that you want to start just gently finding new perspectives on, so that it can soften your journey and you can find ways to actually get yourself to do the things you want to do. And maybe in my case, if I fear posting on social media, like in a very much more grand way, if I fear that, then I at some point want to start shifting. And I have been chipping away at this, which has allowed me, like, I wouldn't have done a live stream a year ago. I wouldn't have done it. It would have been
You
too.
got me to do a live stream.
I know, I
It's
know, I
because of you that
know,
I'm here. And I love it. It's like
I know.
it feels so comfortable with you, Chris.
Oh, thank you. Yes, same. But like that's but I think we lead ourselves up to that, right? I
Yes.
don't think it's about pushing ourselves through fear. We
Oh,
didn't do this because we were scared and we said, but we should do it anyway. We
right.
did this because we were having so much fun on Clubhouse, and it was like, oh, what if? Wouldn't it be fun to like do this in a different form, do this in a video form where we can get out to other people and
Yeah.
share what we are talking about here in this more like Clubhouse is audio only. So, it adds a layer of comfort to it. But that comfort is great because it helped prepare us for this. And so by doing Clubhouse and by having those conversations, it led us to the point where doing this just felt like the next fun thing to do. And so my way of navigating fears, because I feel like I've done really cool things in my life. I feel like I've led this really cool journey, and it wasn't through forcing myself to do things that I was scared of. It was allowing myself to do what feels fun. And when I hit points that are kind of scary, I either divert and go in a different direction. Maybe I'll take the scenic route until I get. And I think the scenic route helps helps prepare our mind, helps introduce us to new things that we're comfortable with, but allows us to kind of start seeing things in a different way. And then sometimes you take the tools from the scenic route that you've gone down, that helps you make that turns the fear into something more like, oh, curious or interesting or
Yeah.
fun. And so like
And
oh,
putting a quote up. We heard from Brian, who's I love this. This is such an important reminder. Fear can be so
Brian, wait a
paralyzing.
minute, I know him from Clubhouse. Hi, Brian.
Okay.
Wait, is he watching live?
Yeah. This
Oh,
is
nice.
this
Okay,
is a
cool.
current comment from Brian
Nice. All
about,
right.
yeah, the idea of really resonating with the idea of replacing fear with curiosity or courage. So
Yes.
yeah.
Yes, I love that. Okay, this is such an important reminder. Fear can be so paralyzing. Yes, it can be so
Mhm.
paralyzing. Love the idea of replacing fear with curiosity and courage. Awesome. Yeah, hell yeah.
Yeah.
Brian nailed it. Like I love that. And yeah,
Okay.
that's and so I kind of want to just introduce to people who might be new to this concept. We don't have to, like, we hear all the time. This is, again, this goes back to hustle culture. This goes back to the push and the grind, where you have to do what you have to push yourself outside your comfort zone. You have to face your fears. You have to break through your fears. You have to do, oh, I don't love that. For anyone who's like me and does not enjoy that, I just want to be a voice that says there are alternate ways to go about navigating fear, and those ways include doing what makes you happy and doing the steps that you are comfortable doing, that are fun to you, that are interesting to you, that draw your curiosity, that fuel your passion. Like, find the things, continue doing the things that are comfortable, and watch yourself. If you truly want what's beyond that fear, like let's say you have fear here and then you want what's beyond it, do the things that are fun, interesting, exciting, and fuel your heart and fulfill your heart. And you will find alternative ways of thinking that help you move through that fear in a way that doesn't feel uncomfortable. It feels very natural. It feels very like next step. It feels very like, oh, that does feel fun now. Now that we've done Clubhouse, wouldn't it be fun to do a live stream? Wouldn't that
Mhm.
be fun? Not scary. It's just fun.
It was a
And then
natural step.
it's the
Yeah.
next natural step. And so, yeah,
Yeah.
approach. So there are other ways to deal with fear besides what we've been taught. And I think it's so important because some people sit in this reality where they hear over and over again that they have to push themselves through the fear, but they're too afraid to do that. And so they never do anything. They just sit there in this fearful state for like months on end or sometimes years on end without actually making the progress or the movement that they want in their life, when really, if they just started to just understand that two things. Number one, you can choose to do other things now that can help prepare you for fear, for those things that can change fear into something else, by following your fun and your interest and your joy and what fulfills you. And then two, start thinking about whatever it is that you're scared of. Find whatever that belief is, because it'll be specific. Like for me with the social media, it would be like, I fear what other people are going to think when they see me putting out videos, since I did not grow up in the world of, mindset and personal development, and talking about things like this is not something that 10 years ago I was doing. It was not something 5 years ago I was doing. And so uh, I have this fear about, well, how are other people going to perceive me now, going from like the TV world to talking about this? And so that's the negative belief. But if I can start to shift how I'm thinking about this, like, this is I have a lot of personal experience that helps me understand this. I'm good at talking about this kind of stuff. I'm already doing basically what I'm scared of on social media. I'm doing it here. Like, I'm already doing it, right? Like, this conversation is me putting myself out into the world where anyone can see it and watch it. And so I'm already doing it. And so just taking these little pieces about how I'm thinking about this, it sort of softens the idea. And this is what I credit for getting me ready as I am to. I used to be in a place where even the thought of posting on Instagram would be so nerve wracking to me that I would not even entertain it. And now I'm at the place of like posting on Instagram. The thought of doing that is like, that's interesting. I could see myself doing that. Like, I can feel like I'm readying myself, right, Sharon? Like, what do you feel like? What is your approach for fear specifically? Like, when you fear something, what's your typical approach to it?
Well, you're reminding me of the Marianne Williamson quote that I think is so powerful, because my approach is different depending on what the fear is about. But lately, I've been in uncharted territory because I spent a lot of energy just making sure I'm lined up with who I really am,
Mm,
my core truth, and living from that place. I'm really committed to that. The more I commit to living an authentic life, in a way, the scarier it gets, because I'm really in new uncharted territory. I think like you are, right?
mm,
We're
mhm,
we're stepping into what really lights us up and putting that out in the world. And so a lot of these things I've never done before. I don't have a reference point for how to do them.
Hmm.
And so it brings up the Marianne Williamson quote that our greatest fear is how great we can be.
Mm.
And that we are meant to shine our light in the world. Us shining our light doesn't diminish anybody else's light.
Hmm.
And so it is about us giving ourselves really the permission to show up fully in that light. And I remind myself of that because sometimes there can be that voice that comes in, the doubting voice or something. And I think especially for those of us, and this is our audience, right, who are growth oriented, we want to grow and evolve in our lives, have lives of happiness, of meaning, of accessing the best parts of who we are. And whenever we do that, we're sort of pioneers in a way in our own life because we
Mm-hmm.
may not have other people around us who have done this. Oh, I see your kitty's tail
Oh,
in the back.
well, she's crafty. She's yeah. She
So,
just
so to answer your question, I notice more fear coming up because of the unknown. It's like stepping
yeah.
into my greatness, which is scary. It is the Marianne Williamson thing, even though in my head it makes no sense. Why should I be scared of how great I can be? But it is scary because I don't know where I'm gonna end up.
Right.
And I love being on a wild ride. I don't have to know where I'm gonna end up, but it's
Yes.
still that kind of, I don't know, maybe it's reptilian brain, fear of the unknown.
Sure.
I don't
Yeah.
know what it is, but I recognize it.
Yeah.
So that's sort of when I tell myself, how do I be, which I invite audiences to a lot. How can I be a little bit brave? I
Mm.
don't want to force things like, oh, I ought to be able to do this by now. No, it's not about that. Just like you're saying, it's not about putting the pressure on myself in a way that feels oppressive. Like I want to love myself through the process. That's
Hmm.
really, to me, that's a great way to move through life.
Yeah.
So, how can I move through that fear? And so, for getting on Clubhouse, it was let me surround myself with my friends. And I invited my friends to join me. Then I could do it.
Mm.
And so it was getting a little bit creative about,
Creative. Yes.
yeah,
Creative.
creative
Hmm.
again. Curious and creative, right? What's going to help me ease into this a little bit? Same thing when I started speaking in person events. I thought, well, how do I go from just me on Clubhouse to a big studio audience that I envision? Well, let me start. This is what came to me. Again, getting curious, being creative. Let me start in my friend's living room with a group of people I know or they
Mm.
know. That's what we did. The first thing was in a friend's living room, invited a whole bunch of people. It was phenomenal. And then I was
Mm.
all fired up to do the next one. And I did. And somebody's like, well, we can do it in my house next. And then it went on for kind of snowballed from there.
Yeah.
And then I got this. Oh, this is the other thing that I think was big is waiting for inspiration. Then like when you move through a little bit of fear, you can get some inspired ideas, right, about what's next. So then I knew I was going to be traveling, and I got this inspiration one day. How about if I try to give a talk everywhere I travel? And I was traveling
Mm.
to visit friends. So then I just asked them, who do you know where I'm going to be visiting you where I could give a talk? And bing, bang, boom, I got plugged into giving public talks in Prague and in New York. I mean, it
That's
was
so cool.
it was so easy, Chris. It was
Yeah.
just doors opening effortlessly because I remained lined up with who I was, with my truth. I think that's what really enables me to move through fear is when I'm living from my truth. It's not trying
Yes.
to live who I'm not. And
Right.
that's a different kind of fear, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh my God. I love this concept because it kind of two things pop up to me about it. So one is the idea of um uh when you live as yourself, when you are leading with your heart, when you are in oh now I see your pup behind you.
There's my dog.
Um when hi Sammy, I wonder if she can see me. When you tap into yourself, when you lead as the real you, as who you really are, your power, your strength, your love, your joy, you are accessing headspaces that help you navigate any problem. And like you were showing with the Clubhouse example, creatively coming up with ways for you to be able to be comfortable doing it. It wasn't about pushing yourself to do something uncomfortable. It was getting creative and then saying, how do I make this comfortable? How do I make this nice and pleasant and fun? Oh, let's have my friends be part of it. But that idea, which was so inspired, which helped get the ball rolling, and now you have been doing this for multiple years and have had so many people in your rooms that where none of your like personal friends or like they may not be part of it in the same
Right.
way anymore,
Yeah.
but you have this whole new community because now you're comfortable doing it. That wasn't you pushing, that was you creatively finding another alternative that helped you move along that path or moved you on that journey. And we don't think about this enough, but we have the creativity to tap into this. We have
So
the
true.
insight. We can put ourselves in state of mind and state of heart to download insights and epiphanies and clear thinking and
Right.
creativity and seeing our answers and seeing our solutions and getting the clarity we're looking for and the perspectives we're looking for that can help navigate us on this road so it doesn't have to. So I guess one of the ways that I'm pulling from what you're saying, but it's such a good point, is remember when you're navigating your journey and fears pop up that you can have the answers inside you. It's just a matter of thinking differently. It's just a matter of getting creative. It's just a matter of finding inspiration. And you can do that by tapping into yourself. Meaning, and how do you do that? Well, find more ways to relax, find more ways to
Yeah.
play in your life, find more ways to have fun, find more way, even unrelated to the thing that you want. Like me going on a bike ride has nothing to do with me posting on social media, but me going on that bike ride did unlock clarity on what I can do to help me move along the journey of the social media. So it's not the actual thing or the activity, it's the headspace, it's the
Right.
getting in touch with yourself. That's what unlocks the magic. And so if you can remember that on your journey, fears are okay to be there. It's okay for us to have fear. It's natural. Like you're saying, like anytime we are expanding or going into parts unknown in this world, it's natural to have fears and uncertainties and nervousness about some of that stuff because it's new to us. It's not familiar in this moment. And so that's okay. It's human, it's normal, it's natural. But know that the way to go about it is not to ram through fear and do things that you don't want to do and make yourself uncomfortable. It doesn't have to be. You could instead find ways to tap into your heart and soul. And there's a variety of ways to do that. And then know that by doing that, you're unlocking your best thinking and your best superpowers, your
Yeah.
specific superpowers that can help you think of ways to navigate this world where you can take paths that make it more interesting to you, or where it becomes more fun and less scary, more exciting, less scary, more curious, less scary, more like, I just want to do this because it sounds like the next best thing to do.
Yeah, in short, love yourself through the fear. Don't
Yeah. Yeah.
battle. Don't be in conflict. Don't beat yourself up. That is
Right.
not that is the old school notion of how to deal with fear. Just suck it up. Listen, that's old, tired thinking. It's time for the paradigm shift. That the answer is always in the direction of love. It really is. We can have fear and embrace ourselves through it and move through it in all the ways you're talking about that are really an act of loving ourselves through that process. And that's how we move through it in a way that gets to feel really good. We don't
Yeah.
have to punch ourselves or force ourselves or
Yes.
it's not about doing battle with ourselves. It's just
Right.
not. Yeah.
And reminder, guys, like you want happiness in the end. You want to enjoy your journey in the end. You don't want to be living a journey where everything feels like a grind or everything feels hard or where you feel like you're forced to do things that you don't want to do or that you're not ready to do. And it doesn't have to be. You can live life in a way where the journey feels more comfortable to you and feels more peaceful to you and feels more confident to you and feels more comfortable to you and feels more fun to you. And it's about doing this, loving yourself,
And
enjoying
that
your time.
and that's why I salute Simone Biles.
Great.
Just
I
because
love that.
that's what she
Yeah.
did. That's what she did. It took immense courage to do that because the thinking in sports, especially at the world class Olympian level, is that you don't do that.
Yeah.
You sacrifice yourself for the team.
Hmm.
And so many people have competed on injuries and then they got more severely injured. They weren't good to themselves. And it's time to shift that. And I think her doing that gave permission to a whole new generation of people. She's a real role model
I was gonna
for,
say, like, that's a
yeah.
great example of living by example, of like,
Yes.
do right, live by example and show other people that you can say, I'm not really into this either, or I'm not really ready for that, or that's not really for me anymore, or my priorities have shifted, and now I would rather, like, personally, I would rather, my priorities used to be, how do I get ahead? How do I find success, that traditional success? And now it's much more, how do I just enjoy this life more? And by
And that isn't
making
that how you would define success, by the way?
now, yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. Success is happiness. It's enjoying life. If
Yeah.
that, like, there are so many people who get exactly what they're looking for, whether it's the money or the relationship or the whatever, the house or the vacations or whatever, and yet they're still miserable. Yet they go through each day unhappy, depressed, anxious, miserable. What is the ultimate win then? It's not, it's to
Exactly.
find the happiness. And there are people who have money that are happy, there are people who don't have money that are happy, there are people
Yeah.
who are working the job that they dreamed of and they're happy, and there are people that are, not quite there yet, and there's but they can still find happiness. And by finding the happiness and prioritizing the enjoyment of life, you you like, ironically, set yourself best up to find that dream life that you want, because then your creativity is unlocked, then your
Yeah.
inspiration is unlocked, then your heart is unlocked, then your best thinking is unlocked, then you have more bandwidth to deal with the shit that you're dealing with, like, then you have just more clarity about things, like, so by enjoying it, by prioritizing your happiness, your enjoyment, how you're navigating the journey itself, what I say to people is, like, don't get lost in the weeds of the game. Like, we're playing, sometimes we get too lost in the details. Like, this person said this thing, or it was unfair. I was fired for this, or I didn't land that. I interviewed, but they rejected me, or I went on a date, but it didn't go well, and she or he didn't want to keep, go on a second date. And we get so lost in the details of our life and the game that we forget how we're playing it. My question, or my suggestion to anyone watching, is consider more how you're playing this game, how you're approaching these situations, not necessarily the situations themselves, but how are you going about it? How are you thinking about it? How are you feeling about it? And how are you listening or not listening to yourself, so that you can sort of make those changes that can make this life smoother, easier, happier, more comfortable, and keep you moving in the directions you want to go.
Well said. So, yeah, we're
Yeah.
basically saying lead with curiosity, be willing to be a little bit courageous, but don't force anything.
Yeah.
Be really loving to yourself in the process. And yeah, let that creativity lead and have a good process. It's not just about an outcome. It's about
Right.
really being joyful in all of life. So
Right.
we're close to our wrap up time already, Chris. That went so
Yeah.
fast.
I know.
I wonder if, in addition to telling people where they can find you, if you have any last closing thoughts about this
I
key
do.
topic. Okay.
I do. I do. I do. Um, as you're navigating your journey towards whatever it is you want, know that anything you're thinking about is possible. Like, truly, like, the where you want, what your dreams in your heart are, it is possible. But it's sometimes not the way you think, and it's sometimes not as direct as you think. And sometimes we fear the steps that we think we need to do in order to get them, when in reality, we might not need those steps at all. The things that you're fearing might not even be necessary or needed. You just think that you're on this path. Sometimes we're so linear. Our mind just works so, like, our brain just wants to think, like, okay, this happens and then this happens and this happens and then I'm there. But I'm scared of this and this and this. But when really you have no idea, but also you can go down this other route that feels very comfortable, feels very fun, feels like it doesn't even relate really to what you're doing. Like, for example, like, the way I got on Conan was ultimately being recommended, having a friend who was actually Jimmy Kimmel's assistant at the time, who let me know, like, hey, there's this opening at Kimmel. Do you want to apply for it? And I was like, oh my God, yes. And then that led to, in that interview, this is a story for another day, but essentially that interview led me to directly to the Conan interview that got me the Conan job, like one right after the other. And so at the end of the day, it wasn't me doing something. It wasn't, I couldn't have imagined, it was me going to 4th of July barbecues to meet Miguel, to meet this guy who would ultimately recommend me for this interview at Kimmel. It was going, having dinners, it was going to parties. Those on the surface don't sound anything related to the dream of like working on Conan, but those were what helped me make the connection that ultimately led me to getting the dream on Conan. So don't think that it has to be the way you have it in your mind, and approach your journey to your goals and to your dreams with an open minded flexibility. That's what I would say. Like, be open and flexible, because sometimes it's not going through your fear, it's going around it, or it's going under it, or it's going, like it's like there's all alternate ways to navigate it, and just stay open to all of them, because you never know. My kitty is like at the door. So that's what I would say last.
Okay, we really have to go in a minute. So
yes.
Okay. So my last thought is embrace your fear. Have a conversation with it. Befriend it. It's got messages for you. It can help guide you in the direction of your truth, of your wisdom. If you simply listen to it, just like you're saying, Chris, you don't need to circumvent it. You don't need to avoid it, but really embrace what it has to tell you. So that's my final thought.
Love that.
And yeah, and let's see, you can find me at SharonHoffmanLiving.com. And if you go there on the homepage, you can get a free gift. It's a 10-minute guided visualization to drop you in to the wisest part of yourself. You can also join me on Clubhouse Wednesdays at 6 p.m. and Saturdays at 8:30 a.m., where Chris is sometimes a very treasured visitor into those shows. So
love Clubhouse. Yeah, Dr. Sharon's house on Clubhouse.
Yep, and hosting your own as well. Yeah. Okay.
And yes, and I highly recommend. Those conversations are great, and the visualization is also great.
Thank you.
And you can find me at chrisnewth.com. That's my website. I have an EQ newsletter. So anyone who wants to just learn the basics of emotional intelligence, I feel like it can help anyone who's looking, whether you think you have high emotional intelligence or you want more higher emotional intelligence. It's so important to understand what your emotions are. Like Sharon, you were just saying, they tell us information. That fear is telling you information. And if you know what it's telling you and you know what to do with it, it can change your life in any area of that you want. It can improve your life in any area of your want. So know what your emotions are telling you, know what they mean, know what to do with them. And this is all very it's not complicated. I just want to stress that. Well, my goal in life is to simplify emotional intelligence so that people can understand this in a very intuitive, easy, logical way. So if you're looking for that, check out my website, chrisnewth.com. It has a newsletter you can sign up for and get emails to help walk you through just each day a little breakdown of like, here's a way to see it. Here's another way to see it. Here's another way to see it.
Okay, and join us. We're here weekly on Chris Newth's YouTube channel and on my Sharon Hoffman Facebook page. So please join us next Thursday at 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern.
Yes. And thank you, Brian, for being part of today's show. I love that we got a comment to talk about, and I love the participation. Thanks for being here, Brian. Thanks for contributing to the conversation, and I look forward to future episodes. Thanks, Sharon, for doing this, as always.
Thank you, Chris. Always a pleasure.
Awesome. Okay. And we'll see you guys next time.
Yeah. Bye for now, everybody.